Hello and welcome to my channel. I am so excited because today, well, I shouldn't be that excited. I am anxious and nervous because we are going to go through this big bad boy right here. All 800, 798, something like that, pages of this very dense, gorgeous book that I love so much. So I'm a little nervous. My husband at this point in time is downstairs with friends watching the WWE Royal Rumble, and they are very animated and excited. So if you have any background, if you hear any background noise, I am so sorry, but they are passionate. What can I say? But today we are going to do the plot overview of this. So if you watched my other video where I did the plot overview of House of Earth and Blood, basically I went through like the whole like world, but like a general overview of the world building, political system, characters, like key terms and things, and then an extensive plot summary. With this one, I'm gonna skip like the political overview, world building. I'm not gonna go through like the main characters that are already established, just because if you want that, you can go check that out in my first video, the House of Earth and Blood plot overview. It's called like Forgot the Plot. You can check that out in that one. The first like 15-20 minutes of that video is like an extensive overview of material that still really does apply to this one if you need like a refresher on who the heck are the Asteri? I don't know. I can't pronounce things. We're just gonna go with it. But so we are gonna I do have a couple like plot location things to talk about, some new character additions, and then we're gonna get into the plot, which is like super hard because like this is dense. A lot happens. A lot of the things that happen seem like little things, but they end up being big things. So we're going to do our best. So get ready. House of Sky and Breath coming up. Okay, so as always, I have my notey notes and a pen so I can cross off when I talk about everything. I did my best to break up this book into somewhat major plot points. When I say somewhat major, one of the plot points is the plot begins. Another one is there was something else funny that I put in here that I was like, it's all coming together. Random tidbits. What a solid plot point on my end. But it all kind of makes sense to me in terms of how this book comes together. But we're going to start off with the location and key terms and key characters new specifically to House of Sky and Breath. Some of these characters and things we've seen before, but we need to kind of are a little bit more major in this book, so I give a little more detail here. But the first thing I want to talk about, which I am going to do my ACOTAR Throne of Glass Crescent City theories video, and one of them I find really interesting. It has to do with hell as a location. So I'm not going to talk too much about like my theories around hell, but I do want to point out this is that while we don't actually go to hell in this book. Oh, wait, let me stop here. Even though I feel like it might be very clear, because I want to be fair, this is all 100% spoilers. So if you have not read House of Sky and Breath and you want to, everything is a spoiler. I highly recommend turning back now if you want to read the book. If you don't want to read the book and you want someone to give you the details, because maybe you just want to read the ACOTAR books, perfect. You're in the right place. I can give you all the hot goss that you need. Otherwise, this is not like general my review things, like everything was a spoiler. You have been warned. Okay, so hell, there are four like circles of hell. There are seven circles of hell that have been referenced, and I wrote this out because I was really thrown off by the parts of the book, because both Crescent City books are broken up into different parts. So book one, so let me just go through the hell. So hell is the hollow, the trench, the canyon, the ravine, the chasm, the abyss, the pit. And as you get lower, it gets more intense. Like the pit, the prince of the pit is Apollyon. He is like head honcho, badass dude. And then as you get higher up, so the hollow prince, he's probably scary, don't get me wrong, but he's not the prince of the pit, right? So it goes lower. One thing that's interesting, book one, House of Earth and Blood, I knew this when I was reading it, but I was like, that's interesting. So the first four parts of House of Earth and Blood are the hollow, the trench, the canyon, the ravine. And then in this book, House of Sky and Breath, it's three parts, and it's the chasm, the abyss, and then it ends in the pit. So I think it's interesting that even though we never travel through hell barely has like anything to do with the books. Like, we get some characters from hell, but it's very much backstory, and it's clear that that's probably coming up later on. But I think it's really interesting that the parts of the book are divided up by the names of the different circles of hell. I mean, it's very hellish for the characters, what they're going through, but I just thought that was really interesting. I do want to clarify, so again, the 3 parts that we're doing in this book are the chasm, the abyss, and the pit. So, but in terms of plot, it's just kind of broke. I mean, I don't think it really necessarily ties. We might realize later, oh my gosh, that plot totally makes sense for something being called the chasm, but for now, no. But I just thought something very interesting to note about this book. So key terms I wanted to go over for you. So we have Ophion, Thunderbird, and Lightfall. Only 3 in this only 3 in this video. So Ophion, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, they are like this rebellion group. I'm pretty sure Philip Briggs, who was a human character in the House of Earth and Blood, I'm pretty sure he was part of Ophion. If not, he was like headed there. But it's kind of like unknown how big this network is. But it's essentially this rebellion that is trying to go against and overthrow the Asteri. I don't know how to best pronounce that. In this book, the sector, I guess, of Ophion that we really interact with and know about is called the Lightfall Squadron. I don't know if it's called Lightfall Squadron. I just put squadron next to it, so just the Lightfall unit. And that is it's like kind of like one of their like highest ranking units, I would say. So Ophion, that's like the rebellious. It's multiple. It's all different kinds of units into one. But Lightfall is the one that we really follow in this book. And going on to then Lightfall, it's a special unit of Ophion. It's all humans, and it's led by Pippa Spetsos. She is a new character, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But if you don't know what Lightfall, if you don't remember what Lightfall is, it's a unit within Ophion, which is the rebellion against the Asteri. Then Thunderbird is a new term. So they are a special species of veneer that a long time ago, like the Asteri did everything they could to annihilate this bloodline, because their power, they can like manipulate, they can absorb and then expel different types of energy in different ways. They're like super, super mega powerful and can't really be controlled. So years and years ago, the Asteri like killed all the Thunderbirds, but it turns out we have at least one left. Okay, so we're now going to go on to main characters. Again, I'm skipping the characters, like I'm skipping Bryce. We know who Bryce is. So I'm just going to go into new characters and a little refresher on some of the characters that were smaller in book 1 that play a bigger part in this book. So going along with the Thunderbird key term, our first new character, her name is Sophie Renast, I think. But Sophie, she is a Thunderbird. And so she's also, I don't know if this part of what Sophie has is like part of the Thunderbird thing, but so she can kind of like a lot of the characters in these books can shapeshift, or they're like shifters. Like we have leopard shifters, and we have Baxian, who's an angel, who's like a dog shifter type of thing. We have the hind, who shifts into a deer. So shifting, it's not just like the typical stereotypical like werewolf shifting we would think of, but Sophie can shift into a human. Isn't that interesting? Wasn't there another famous Sarah J. Maas character whose shifter form was human? It was Aelin from Throne of Glass. Interesting. I shall chat about that more in a different video, but just wanted to point that out there. We've definitely met a character before who can shift into, whose shifter form is human. So Sophie is a Thunderbird. Again, this fact that she shifts into a human essentially, which means that like if they smell her, she doesn't smell veneer. So remember, veneer is the term used to describe those with power versus human. So you're human or you're veneer. So even though, for instance, Bryce Quinlan, our main character, even though she's half human, she's considered to be a veneer because of the fact that she does have power. So Sophie can shapeshift. It just makes me laugh because I'm like Aelin, but it's Sophie. Sophie can shapeshift to look human. So she's able to hide, and go like, is just very good for the covert ops. So she actually works for Ophion. And it's interesting because Ophion, again, they hate all Vanir. Not Ophion entirely, but like Pippa's Lightfall unit hates like all Vanir of any kind. It's not just the Asteri and like those in power, it's anyone with power. So I know that will get interesting as this book goes on, as the next book goes on. It's definitely going to be something of contention. So Sophie is working with Lightfall and Ophion in general because of the fact that she can get undercover, because she can be Vanir when she needs to be, she can be human when she needs to be. Her brother was like kidnapped and taken into a like slave type of concentration camp type of situation when he was younger, and she's been trying to find him, and she pretty much offered her services, and she told Ophion, look, I'm a Thunderbird, and they knew what that was because like that's a big ass deal, excuse my language. So that's a big deal. And so even though she's Vanir, Ophion does let some people with Vanir powers in, because we're going to meet someone else who's Vanir and also works for Ophion. So, and also like Hunt, like, you know what I mean? So, but the ones in particular that we deal with in this book hate all Vanir regardless of whether or not they're for the cause or against the cause. So Sophie's working with them to try to, because they pretty much keep promising her, like, if you help us with your powers and your ability to shapeshift between human and Vanir form, we'll help you locate your brother. And they've kind of strung her along, but eventually they do find her brother. And I'm going to stop there because that's kind of where it picks up with my plot summary portion of this video. So Sophie's a new character. I already kind of talked about Pippa. Pippa's the commander of Lightfall and the human rebel group. She's not nice. Like, she's definitely one of the ones who's like, any Vanir's gotta go. At one point in this book, there's a bunch of Vanir characters, I think it's specifically shapeshifters, who have helped her, and then she has her humans turn around and kill them. When it's hard to kill them, but they have these things, I think it's called Gagorzian, I don't know, type of bullet, which it's very effective against someone with power and slows down the healing. And it kind of like, I know in book 1, if I remember correctly, yeah, at the end of book 1, House of Earth and Blood, you know, Hunt is put in Gagorzian, those type of shackles, which halts all power. So they have that type of material in their bullet. So they, even though they don't have power, they really are a force to be reckoned with. So she's just the worst. And of course, she's the one that Sophie's working under to locate her brother, as well to do these other things for Ophion, which we'll learn more about in the plot summary. Okay, next new character is Cormac. I don't know if we mentioned him by name in House of Earth and Blood, but Cormac is a cousin of Rune. Rune, if you remember from the first book, his ordeal before he made the drop, and it's where he got the Star Sword. He fought people to get to the Star Sword, and Cormac is the cousin that he like fought to get to it. Cormac and then 2 of his brothers or other cousins. But Cormac is kind of a dick, pardon my language, or at least comes off that way, I would say. But he is new to this book. He is a Vanir who is from oh gosh, now I can't, Avalon. So you have the Valbera, which is a continent, and then Avalon's another part, like a city. He's from another part of the same world, another part of Fae. His powers are more similar, like he shares some powers with Rune. He has some teleporting powers that Rune doesn't have. Actually, he doesn't share any powers with Rune. I don't know why I said that, but they're kind of related. Like, they both stem from the Helena Thea line, which was discussed in book 1. But he's brought into this book for 2 reasons. One, he is the Autumn King, has an arranged marriage between him and Bryce, which gets really interesting when Bryce finds that out. But number 2, because he's a royal prince, he's going to be king of the Avalon Fae. Number 2, he actually is an agent for Ophion. He's Agent Silver, and he is actually in love with Sophie. So he plays a big deal, and he's very interesting in this book. So that is Cormac. Also, I want to note there is a Cormac in Throne of Glass, I think spelled almost the exact same way. Clearly, I don't think the same person, but I don't know why she has characters of the same name. Really threw me for a loop, and if they're somehow connected, I'm going to lose my mind eventually. But just wanted to put that out there. Okay. Other new characters, Emil, that's Sophie's brother that she's trying to find. He's 13 years old in the book. Like, he's super young. And that he's a child. And then we have Baxian. So Baxian, we met him before. He is the Hellhound. He was one of Sandriel, like the really bad archangel who not enslaved Hunt, but was like Hunt's like premier first owner who like caused him a lot of pain, right? Baxian was one of the H's. Baxian was in Sandriel's Triari, and he's the Hellhound, so he shapeshifts into a hellhound type of thing. He's pretty bad. He's got a big scar on his face from a lightning wound that Hunt inflicted. He is a big deal in this book. We find out in this book that he is Danica's mate. And that's like a huge shock to Bryce. And through becoming Danica's mate, he kind of changed his ways a little bit, and he's now he's not an official rebel, but he is definitely a rebel sympathizer. But no one knows. He doesn't really feel comfortable telling anyone. He feels really alone because what happened is in the last book, Sandriel was murdered, and she's got this Triari that then has to be divvied up. So then we meet two other characters, Celestina, who knows if I'm saying that right, and Ephraim. So Celestina is the archangel chosen to now rule and be in charge of Crescent City. Ephraim given Sandriel's area. So Micah was killed. Celestina's now ruling in Micah's stead. Sandriel was killed. Ephraim's now ruling in Sandriel's stead. But then that leaves Sandriel's Triari, which get broken up. So Ephraim gets the Harpy and gets the Hind. And Celestina in Crescent City gets the Hammer, Pollux, who's awful, and the Hind's lover, and the Hellhound, Baxian. So that's how they end up in Crescent City. Because remember, there were 5 Triari in Crescent City, but Justinian and Vic were put to death for treasonous crimes. So now there's 2 openings, so they get the Hellhound and the Hammer. Quite interesting. The Hind also plays a big part. Her real name is Lydia. She also is a double agent. She's also Agent Daybright. She is in the rebellion, and she's doing one heck of a job hiding herself, and she definitely does a lot in this plot to help people along. But her other names in this book are Agent Daybright, Lydia Servos, and Day. She is also Queen Hypaxia's. She's the new queen of the witches, half sister. So I can't remember if they share the same mom, the same dad. I think they share the same mom. I'm not sure. Either way, she is related to Hypaxia. Hypaxia is not necessarily, I'll talk about her next. I was going to talk about her next anyway. She is not really loved by the witches because she has this like necromancer. She can like talk to the dead and do all this crazy stuff that really isn't typical for witches. And her training was weird. We find out that she was really isolated as a child. Her mother did this to like protect her, and all of her tutors were ghosts. And so like she does not have the best social skills. The witches don't really like her. The witches actually really like the Asteri, and they can tell like Hypaxia is trying to be a little bit more independent. So Hypaxia is worried that the witches are trying to overthrow her and try to get the Hind to become queen of the witches, which is interesting. Okay. Therion, remember, he is the like head of intelligence for the River Queen. He plays a big part in this book. We find out, I think it was kind of hinted at in the last book, but we definitely find out in this book that he slept with the River Queen's daughter, and it really ticked the River Queen off. So he was forced to propose to the River Queen's daughter, which has been 10 years, I think, that they've been engaged. And he's kind of at the River Queen's mercy because he pissed her off by sleeping with her daughter and then not wanting to do anything else. So he kind of has a rough life. So the River Queen, the River Queen's daughter, not much to say there, but they are bigger parts. So they're interesting. The River Queen is actually really interested in Sophie, and we don't really find out why. And then interested in Sophie's brother, Emil. So she does play a bigger role in this book than the last book. Same as the River Queen's daughter. We do see her a couple of times as well. Then you have the astronomer. There's this like the place where like these mystics are, which mystics are people who can like their brains can travel in other places and like other realms essentially. And so the astronomer is like the head of the mystics. Small character, but does have a big impact in the book. Then we have Ethan. Remember, Ethan is Connor's brother. Connor was the wolf who was in love with Bryce. Ethan was his younger brother who was like Bryce's best friend. And then they didn't talk for a couple years because Ethan was really hurt by how Bryce acted during Connor's murder and then after, and he plays a really big part at the end. Remember, at the end of Earth and Blood, he helped Bryce out in terms of like defending the city against the people, the things, the hounds of hell, right? And then we have a mysterious wolf. So one of the mystics is a wolf, and we meet that wolf a couple of times. Danica So one thing, Danica's still in the book, even though she's dead. She's still a driving factor. Like she knew a lot of stuff. We find out that she was a bloodhound, which means she can smell bloodlines, which is really really interesting. Like that's probably why she knew that Bryce and Rune were siblings and not cousins. So that comes into play a lot because she's able to kind of figure some things out just based on how people smell and lies that people are hiding. So Danica is still a part of this book. We also meet two sprites in this book that are not Lahaba or related to her. And then Aradne, I'm so bad. She is a dragon who was trapped in a ring released, but we do find out that hell, that dragon fire can hurt a prince of hell. So I definitely think that's going to come into play. Okay, characters. The only other three characters I want to mention are the princes of hell that we've met so far in our journey, because two of them come back and then we get a new one that we meet. Adis is the prince of the chasm. That is the 5th level of hell. He's the one that appears as a cat. Apollyon, the star eater, he's the one who killed one of the Asteri. He is the prince of the pit, the deepest level of hell. And then we have Thanatos. He is the prince of the ravine. We meet him through the mystics. Very minor character. Not minor character, but like he's in it for like a paragraph of the book. But still, we have now met 3 different princes of hell in this book. Okay, so we are done with the characters. So thanks for hanging in there. We're now going to go to plot. So the prologue starts off with Sophie. She is in this, I don't think I wrote down the name. I think it's like Kavala or something like that. She kind of did her last mission for Ophion, and they've now like told her where her brother is, and it's like this concentration camp place. Right before she goes into the camp, though, she lets the Ophion know, I have knowledge that will change the course of the war. I know how to kill the Asteri. And then she goes in, and she does that because she is afraid that since rescuing her brother is not super top priority for Ophion, that they're just going to leave her there or not really try that hard to help to do their part to get her and her brother back out of the camp. So she kind of holds this over their head. So she goes in the camp, she gets her brother out. Cormac, Agent Silver, he's also the Fae, the high prince of the Avalon Fae, rescues her. She also rescues like 10 other children who are in this camp. And then basically Cormac and her brother Emil, they get away. I can't remember if they're on the same boat exactly, but then Sophie gets shot by, I think it's a Gorsian bullet, by the Hind and her Dreadwolf people. And then the Hind comes down. She knows Emil gets away. The Hind comes down and is like, did you tell them what you know? And Sophie's like, I didn't tell anyone, which is weird. The Hind's like, okay, fine, you didn't tell anyone. The Hind then proceeds to put lead shackles on Sophie with a concrete slab and throws her over the ocean, but not before throwing a little white pebble in. And that's kind of where we are with Sophie. She's now drowning at the bottom of the ocean, but her brother is free. All right, that's the prologue. Where we begin in general with the characters, Bryce and Hunt, they have not had sex yet. Bryce, at the end of, I guess what happened at the end of last book is like when they came back and met together, Hunt was like totally ready to get it on, but Bryce was like, I just think we're moving too fast. Let's wait till winter solstice, which is like 5 months away. So that's where they are. Bryce has a new job kind of like at the Fae Archives because Jespa closed down like her stuff, because remember she had that hidden library that people found out about, so she went and re-hid the books and is kind of laying low a little bit. So Bryce needed a new job, so she's now working at like this Fae archive library type thing. Hunt kind of has his old job back, he's just not enslaved, so he's still working right under Isaiah as a Triari member for the 33rd, reporting to the new Archangel, who is Celestina. She seems to be super chill compared to Micah, and like Hunt is like really super, he's like not sure what to think about her. He's like, why would you be nice? But Hunt, this is also where we find out that the Hellhound and the Hammer Pollux are coming, Baxian and Pollux are coming in, and Hunt is paired up with Baxian and tasked with Baxian, the Hellhound, make sure he gets acclimated, make sure he feels at home. He's like your partner, and Hunt is like, this sucks. Ruin at the beginning of the book is throwing a party, who's super high on drugs. Bryce shows up. This is after they go to a ballet performance or dance performance for Juniper. So like everyone's going to Rune's house to celebrate. Like everyone in the entire continent is like at this party doing beer pong, getting high, all kinds of stuff. So Bryce, pretty much our whole cast of characters, Bryce, Hunt, Juniper, Fury, Rune, Declan, Flynn, they're all there at the party. Cormac shows up, and they think it's a portal open, but it's just he like teleports, which is new for them, and it's just the way he teleports kind of look like a portal. And he announces that Bryce is engaged, that Bryce is his betrothed. Doesn't go over very well at all. So then Rune goes to talk to the Autumn King about it, and he's like, "Yep, she claims she's a princess. She is powerful, so she is gonna have to act like one, and she is engaged to Cormac because he is the High Prince of the Avalon, and we need to continue the bloodline. And she is powerful. She has the star, so bloodline, bloodline, bloodline." That's all that matters to the Autumn King. Therion, he angered the River Queen for who knows what this time, and he is tasked with finding Sophie, which is so weird because the River King won't tell him why, and she's definitely not with Ophion. She's not necessarily like excuse me, pro Asteri either, but he's like, this is weird. So he goes and he discovers the concrete slab with the shackles, and there's no body, but he noticed the shackles were unlocked. So he's like, okay, something happened. Either someone grabbed her body, or she got away, or she died after getting away. Something is going on. So then the River Queen also tasks him with finding the brother Emil, because basically I think Emil's a Thunderbird too. Somehow that she knows that Sophie was a Thunderbird, and everyone's assuming Emil's a Thunderbird as well. So they want to try and get the brother. So the brother, Therion's like he's just like hunting it down. Like he's like a spy hunting things down. He finds a boat. He can like by smell tell Emil was on it. There's a body there. He can tell that Emil's headed to the Crescent City area. And like through his research, he realizes, he makes a connection that Danica and Sophie had connected. And so of course now Therion's on his way to go see Bryce and be like, hey, your dead best friend was friends with big player in the Ophion Rebellion. Can you tell me about it? Kind of situation. Ethan. So Ethan gets dropped off at Bryce's apartment all bloodied and beat up because he is officially kicked out of the pack. Not by the Prime, who's the highest, but by Sabine, the Prime apparent, the next upcoming Prime, because Sabine in an article was like, oh no, Bryce is not a hero. She was at the right place at the right time. My wolves are the true heroes. But then Ethan was like, yeah, no, Bryce, I was ordered not to help people. Bryce said she needed help, so we disobeyed command and went and helped her. So of course Sabine didn't like that. So Sabine is like, you're done. Sabine and Amelie, who's like Sabine's like heir, dump bloodied Ethan off, and now he is packless. So now he is at Bryce's house. So that's where we are with our main characters. So then, like I mentioned, Therion tells Bryce, like, yo, your dead best friend connected with an Ophion Rebellion leader, person, whatever. So then Bryce has to sit with that. Therion stays at her apartment with Ethan. Then at the end of the day, Bryce is coming back with like Hunt in tow. She fills Rune in. Rune comes back. She's like, Rune, you gotta know. So they all show up back at her apartment. They're like freaking out when they walk in because Therion and Ethan are sitting on the couch and there's a white cat sitting on their lap. And we all know that that's Adis, a prince of hell. So, and Ethan and Therion had no idea. They just thought they were petting a house cat. Oops. So then like Adis in cat form talks about like Bryce's powers, where they came from, and that she really has to hone her powers and unlock them. Like, this is actually a really important conversation. Adis the cat tells Bryce, you need to hone and unlock your powers. He also talks about the war that they've been fighting with the Asteri for thousands of years. He talks about, like, things that went on with Helena and Thea in the past, and how Rune and Bryce came to get their powers and be a part of the bloodline. And he basically says Bryce is the only one who can stop this ongoing war. It's very weird, but we find out why that's weird later on. Cormac shows up. Surprise, he's Agent Silverbow, and he tries to recruit them to help them find Emil. Of course, as soon as Bryce finds out there is a 13-year-old on his own, lost with people hunting him, Bryce is like, I volunteer, I will help this child, but she doesn't want to help get him for Cormac. She doesn't want to help get him for Therion. She just wants to help get this poor child. Cormac convinces Rune to help the rebellion because Rune can like mind speak, and because Sophie is gone, and we don't really know for sure yet whether or not she's alive or dead. said. They need someone to be able to communicate with Agent Day Bright, I think is her name. Day is her shortened name, and they think through Rune's mind speaking, he can connect to her, and of course, he does. He agrees to make contact. Day Bright shows up in like the mine. She looks like this ball of fire, and he looks like this like night sky. He's terrible at it, but it's fine. It's whatever. They get through it. Then like in the house, they find Danica, Bryce, and Ethan. Like Ethan was like playing with with Danica's sword that Bryce has, and Bryce walks in on him, and she's like, oh. And in the process, he broke her coffee table, and inside the coffee, like Danica just hides things in places. Inside the coffee table was like an old like coursework of Danica's that had to do with like a thing called Dusk and Project Thur. She thinks it might have something to do with Sophie and why Danica was talking to Sophie. So she goes, and so everyone's now starting to looking into this. Okay, there's definitely merit to Danica and Sophie talking. Doesn't mean Danica was a rebel. What was going on here? Also around this time, the Prince of the Pit, Prince Apollyon, visits Hunt in his sleep and is like, yo, dude, you're not using your full powers. You and Bryce need to team up and use your powers. So now we have two princes talking, saying, use your powers, hone them, learn them. So strange, but whatever. Celestia, not Celestina. Is it Celestina? Either way, the new Archangel. I think it's the Harpy, like does this awful thing in the streets to innocent people. And then there's also like, Pollux assaults a woman, and it doesn't look good, so to kind of deflect media attention, the Asteri force her to mate with Ephraim, the other archangel, now leading what Sandriel used to lead. She's not happy about it. She doesn't love him or like him in that way, but she's like, there's nothing I can do. Hunt, like, sympathizes with her, but that's about it. Therion is finding more bodies. Ethan is helping Therion because Ethan has nothing to do because he's not part of a pack, and he's got a really good sense of smell. And they smell like multiple humans, so they're getting more to the trying to figure out who the heck is in Crescent City. Is it Emil? Is it Sophie? Is it Pippa or Peppa Spestos and the Lightfall unit? What's going on here? Yeah, okay. Training in the Reapers. So Cormac is officially they're kind of tentatively in alliance with Cormac, the main group here, but Cormac can teleport essentially, and he's like, Bryce, you should be able to do this too. So he agrees to like train her. So they do training. On the way to, she's not good at it, she like sucks at it, but on the way one day to do training, her and Rune are on the way to go meet Cormac for training, and Rune is just randomly captured by Reapers, and Reapers like never leave the Bone Quarter. So this is also weird. They threaten her, and they're like, the Prince of the Pit wants to battle, so strengthen up. And she's like, why do all these princes of hell care about my powers? And then Cormac comes in and helps a little bit, but essentially Bryce gets a hold of the Star Sword and is able to like wound the Reapers, who cannot be wounded. Like the undead can't be hurt, so it's like strange that this sword can hurt non-living things. So that's kind of a big deal. At the same time, Room's like passed out, and Day is in his head like screaming at him to wake up, wake up, wake up. So that's great. And then from there, so Bryce is really pissed about the Reapers, and she decides, I'm going to go to the Bone Quarter, and I'm going to figure out why the heck we were attacked by these people. Not a great idea. She contacts Jespa to get like the special coins that you need to make it all the way over and see the Underking and go to the Bone Quarter. At the same time, where Day then checks in with Rune, like, hey, I tried to help you. I knew you were unconscious. I was trying to help you get awake, yada, yada, yada. Then we get intel, and the intel is that there's, like, this, like, plot going on. There's, like, these, like, weird, like, mech suit thing that the rebels want to steal, and Rune and Day are, like, talking about that, and Day is like, I don't think it's a good idea for the rebels to try and steal that, but alas, we have the Cormac's team, like with Hunt and Bryce, are agreeing to go like check out these, like agree to, first of all, the Lightfall Squadron or someone's gonna steal this like tech, and then they're gonna have Hunt come in, and they're like Cormac and his people take a look at it, because Hunt in previous years used to like work on tech stuff, so they're kind of now really bringing Hunt and Bryce into the rebellion. Hunt didn't want anything to do with it, doesn't want Bryce to have anything to do with it, but he just goes along with whatever makes her happy. So nice. Okay, so then we get to the Bone Quarter. So they make it to the Bone Quarter, and we learn a lot of awful, awful things. So the Underking is super annoyed. He's like, I did not send any Reapers. I don't have any Reapers unaccounted for. There's also no way you could hurt a Reaper. He's like, maybe someone else sent them. And she's like, you're the only one with Reapers. He's like, no, they're not. They originated from hell. And then she's like, did hell send these? So, like, she can't figure out where these Reapers were. But while they're there, they're kind of like, oh, can I see Connor and the Pack of Devils? Like, she wants to see her friends. The Under King's like super mega sketch about it. And she learns that once, when you make the drop, first light, your like first light power comes out and it like is used to power things. Well, then you have this thing called second light, which is after you've been in the Bone Quarter for so long and like your name is no longer whispered in the winds, like no one remembers you. They send you into a gate and then your soul gets transferred into second light, which powers the city. So pretty much everyone who dies, you don't live in eternal bliss. You're just wandering until you're like your soul's like fried to a crisp essentially and used for power. And sometimes the Underking likes to taste your soul because that power tastes good. It's so awful. But essentially she's like freaking out. She's like, oh my gosh, this is awful. Do the Asteri know this is going on? Is there any true paradise we can go to? It gets pretty bad. The Underking is telling them all this because they realize, oh crap, he's not going to let us leave here alive. So they have to fight one of the hounds. And somehow, like, Hunt has this idea, if the gates gave Bryce power, maybe I can use the gates to take power. They're like desperate. He puts his hand on the gate in the Bone Quarter and is able to pull power from it and then like lightnings up Bryce and like charges Bryce and the sword because she has the sword. This is all very complex, but basically they get out of there. Hunt realizes he can pull power from the gates and he can kind of power the sword up that way. It was pretty cool. They get out of there. I think Therion's the one because the Istros River is goes right around the Bone Quarter gate. So they get out of there and I think Therion's the one who like saves him. So kind of while that is going on with our other cast of characters, we learn that this evil wolf guy named Murdoch is Danica's father. I think she's like the hind second. He's like the hind second in command. He's also like a bloodhound, I think, with really good at smelling. And he discovers that Cormac, Ethan, and Rune are all hanging out together. He doesn't know their names. But he recognizes now their scent. So now they're like, oh crap, if we're all together, he's going to start realizing if he keeps constantly smelling our scents in weird places and together, once he knows who we are, he's going to be able to figure out something's going on. So we meet Danica's dad, and he's crappy. So then like Cormac is trying to get them out like of that alley where this off because Murdoch is like this awful wolf shifter guy. Cormac's trying to teleport them out so that way their smells can get away. And he teleports them to a bar. And so Rune's at this bar. I think he teleports Ethan there too. And then the hind walks in with the harpy and like convinces Rune to play a game of cards. And throughout that, she's like just kind of like berating him. It's pretty awful and like talks really bad about Rune, like called him out like knowing, oh, I know you're sleeping with other people even though you're engaged to my half sister. He also calls Ethan out. He's like, I know you love Bryce Quinlan. I know your deep dark secret was that when Connor died, you were kind of happy that maybe you'd have your chance with Bryce. And so we kind of discover that Ethan has been in love with Bryce and thought that he was Bryce's mate when he first met her, but always backed off because Connor kind of laid claim, and Connor never even knew that Bryce felt this way, so that Ethan felt this way. So Ethan never made a move, and then when Danica and Connor died and they had the 2 years of silence, it got all weird, and then now Hunt's in the picture, so Ethan's kind of heartbroken. He's not quite over it in this book, but he's like, I think he knows it's clear, like, I don't have a shot. Like, it's not happening. Like, he knows. But it's really sad. So, yeah. That's really, really sad. So they come back. So now they're, like, going back to Bryce's apartment. This is like after the Bone Quarter. They're like going throughout their day-to-day lives. They show up at Bryce's apartment and weirdly Sabine is there. And Sabine is like freaking out that that she's housing Ethan because technically as a princess of the Fae and the wolves, the wolves are an alliance, and to be housing an oust member of the wolves is like weird, and they think that Sabine's like, you're plotting against me with Ethan, and it's like weird. And then all of a sudden, so Bryce shows up at her apartment and sees that Sabine's there and freaks out, contacts Hunt, who was busy at a party for Celestina, who Celestina like asked like, please be there. He leaves the party early, and Celestina notices, and she's pissed that one of her Triari left when he was supposed to be there. And then Baxian follows him, the Hellhound, to go back up Bryce, because all he gets from Bryce is a text message saying Sabine here. And so he shows up. Sabine freaks out when Baxian shows up and then leaves. And everyone's like, why did she care? It was weird. We find out later that Baxian is Danica's mate. I think I talked about that earlier in the video. So surprise. And that's why Sabine knew that, and Sabine's like afraid of him kind of thing. So that's what got Sabine out. Honestly, that was it was just weird. I feel like the whole point of that was to give Celestina a reason to be pissed at Hunt, because now Hunt has to stay at the compound, like at the like government office, like where he used to live. He's forced to stay there for 2 weeks. And he and Bryce had recently decided, we're not going to wait till winter solstice to have sex. We'll have sex now. But now he is having to stay there. So still no sex. But we did get some oral. That was lovely. Okay. Bryce and Hunt like fill everyone in on what went down at the Bone Quarter, and Ethan is freaking out. He's like, we have to figure out if Connor's okay. Like, we got to do something to help my brother. So eventually they go to the Mystics. I talked about earlier, the astronomer. They go to this place. I don't know if it's in the meat market. I can't remember where it is, but it's essentially these 3 people, or veneer people, fae or shifters, in a tank, and this astronomer uses their brainwaves and can send them to different realms. So you go and you ask a question and he can get it answered. And so they go to ask a question to talk to Connor and to see if Connor's okay, and the Mystics somehow contact the Prince of the Chasm, I think it is. No, not Prince of the Chasm, Prince of the Ravine, Prince Thanatos, and it's all like weird, but they can't get any answers on Connor. Like, things kind of go haywire, like one of the tank breaks, and it's really, really rough. And I think this is the point too where Ethan realizes that he doesn't realize that she's a wolf, but eventually he realizes one of the Mystics is a wolf, and he's not happy about it. But it's a scary scene. It's like weird, and it's one of those things where I'm like, this just feels like the book didn't need to be this long. But I'm also like, you know what though, this is 100% coming back, so I know this is important. It just feels in the scope of this story, it didn't feel critical, but still important. I'm sticking by it. Okay, then at some point we find that Jessica, like, at some point they realized Danica was in Jessica's library looking at things, and Declan, the like tech genius, did some stuff on it. Did recon, looked at videos and found Danica secretly looking at a book which had to do with ancestry between wolf shifters. And so Danica was trying to find ancestry, which, again, this seems something so weird, but it all comes into play at the end. Because remember, she's a bloodhound, so she can smell bloodlines, and that kind of makes a big thing in the end here, which I'll get to. So Bryce then decides, I'm going to go chat with the Prime. I'm not going to chat with Sabine. She's crazy. I'm going to chat with the Prime of the Wolves, because I think it's weird that Danica was researching this. She goes to chat with the Prime. He agrees it's weird. He's like, we forgot things. Like, these were important people. We forgot our ancestry. And then, Bryce mentions that Ethan was kicked out and the Prime is pissed. Then the Prime eventually contacts Ethan and says, you can come back and you can be the alpha of your own pack if you want. Ethan is not sure if he's going to take him up on it, because he doesn't want to, eventually Sabine's going to be his Prime. He doesn't ever want to be under Sabine, but he's really tempted to be an alpha because he is an alpha by nature. And he kind of likes the idea of being able to run a pack and try to protect people from Sabine. So he gets the offer from the Prime, but doesn't say anything yet. Okay, now we're getting to the island attack. So remember when I was talking about how the rebels were gonna steal this tech? Okay, so they did. And so now So Cormac basically found out that the attack was successful. They have the suits, and so they're on the way to the island. Pippa is on the way to the island to check out this tech too, and Cormac wants to try and intercept it so that Pippa can't touch this stuff. So Cormac goes with Hunt and Bryce and like the crew, not all of them. Bryce then goes to Celestina and is like, I need to borrow Hunt for a family visit so he can meet my mom and go. And so Celestina agrees, okay, fine, you can take Hunt and, he can be done with his 2 weeks, whatever, under the false pretense that he's going to go meet or be with Bryce's family. So at the same time, Ethan around this time, so now you have like this group getting ready to go to this island where the rebels are looking at this tech to try and stop Pippa from getting it, and to also just look at it and see what the heck it is that was stolen in these suits that they're talking about. So everyone's getting ready to do that. Ethan goes back to the astronomer's place because it did not sit well at all. There's no answer on Connor, and he's trying to get an answer. So he's going back. When he's there, the astronomer's not there, and one of the mystics is out of her like pod. And it's because her pod is broken, and he's out to get like the parts for it. And so Ethan is talking to this mystic, and he smells her, and he realizes she is 100% a wolf. He thinks that she's even an alpha wolf, and he's like, what the heck? And she tells her story, and apparently at 4 years old, her family sold her to the mystics so that because they were poor, so that way they could have money and forever like have food for the rest of their family. And so she has been in this tank since she was 4. She has no idea how old she is, because remember that she did make the drop, like the astronomer brought her out to make the drop, and so she could be hundreds of years old. We have no idea, but Ethan is pissed. He's like, there's a wolf here, this is an alpha wolf, this is wrong. But she refuses to go with him. But on the way out, he takes this box that has these rings that he saw when they were there before that are housing that have enslaved what he thinks are sprites, fire sprites, right? So then he steals that. Good job, Ethan. Proud of you for doing that. Okay. So Rune tells Day about the plan again when they're planning to go to the island. Day is like, no, I would not do this. This is not good. Then Day and Rune get more like comfortable with each other. Again, they don't see each other. They're just talking mind to mind. Day admits that she doesn't like the person she has to be with. She hates him. She feels like Rune's the only person who makes her feel like herself in a long time. And I think they fall asleep together, like mind to mind. Now we get to the island attack. Cormac teleports everyone to the island. Hunt takes a look at the tech, is like, yo, this is awful. This is going to kill thousands. And Pippa's like, that's great. We want to kill everyone. This is also where there were Veneer who helped them get to the island. Pippa has her Lightfall unit kill those Veneer. She's like, one less Veneer, I don't care. And this is when Hunt and Cormac and Bryce are like, yeah, you're crazy. So Pippa's like walking away. All the tech is still there because they physically can't lift it. She's going to like make the transaction or, take care of stuff. And Hunt lights it all up. So Hunt destroys everything, and Pippa is pissed. And so then they have to run. They have to run from the island. But again, this is like where a rebel base is. And so they are running from an island. Bryce blinded people, and they steal a boat. They start to escape, but it goes horribly. They're on this boat, and then all of a sudden they hear a bark, and it's Baxian, and he's barking at them and like pointing with his snout or something, and they turn around, and the hind, and I think the hammer, and maybe the harpy too, are all there. They're so far away, they can't see, so they can't see, like they don't know who's who, but they're assuming, oh my gosh, it would definitely be Triari, so it's them. So they're like, if they see us, we're done. Their boat like disintegrates. I can't remember exactly what happens. Like if their boat like disintegrates or whatever. But the hind and the harpy show up. The hind like leaves the boat on a jet ski, like their boat, and gets closer to the group, our main group. And like, so now the hind is seeing who just left the rebel. And of course they can be like, we just blew it all up. We're not bad. We're not on their side. But they're freaking out. So they're like, oh my gosh, it's the hind. She's gonna go tell Celestina, who's gonna tell the Asterion this is bad. The hind then is like threatening, like you're gonna die. She takes a white pebble and throws it into the water, and she's like, this is what I did for Sophie. Let's see if you can find the pebble, something like that. And then a ship emerges and like saves them. And it's weird. it's weird. So now they're on a submarine, and the submarine belongs to not the River Queen, but an Ocean Queen. And they're like freaking out because they get on the submarine because there's no other place to go, and they have no idea if it's a rebel submarine, if it's an Asteri submarine, and it's like this third party. So like, whew, we can breathe. A little backdrop, let's go back to what's going on in the mainland. Ethan's at the house with Flynn and Declan. They destroy the rings. It's 2 sprites and a freaking dragon. So that's what Ethan stole. That's what was in those rings. How fun. I do want to point out that at one point the sprites mentioned that there's a lost sprite queen named Mala or something, a sprite name, or a lost sprite queen, and one of the sprites is named Mala. And there's Mala Fire something, but she's like, that's the same name. And it's the same fire element used in Throne of Glass. So again, very interesting. Okay, so now let's go back to the submarine. Again, it's run by mer people. Hunt is freaking the F out. He's been doing it since he saw the Hind. He is basically essentially, Rune is like, dude, I can smell it. And by the way, Hunt is acting, you and Hunt are like Bryce and Hunt, you guys are mates, and he is acting like a mate would act when their mate is in peril. So Bryce and Hunt go have sex in this beautiful garden in this submarine, and it gets Hunt to calm down. They both like glow, and then at the end of sex they like teleport to another part of the submarine, and they realize that like Bryce's power like needs to be charged. So through sex, Hunt charged Bryce, and now she realizes, oh, she can teleport. So as long as someone like charges her and gives her power, she can then teleport and do all these other things that Cormac was trying to train her on. Someone mentions Sophie, or someone mentions something that has to do with Sophie, and one of the people on board of the submarines like, do you mean Sophie? Like, she's here, we have her. And we do find out that she did die. They were the ones who were going to get her. They were like called by an oracle there, said go here, someone needs you here. So they go in to pick up Sophie, and they were too late and she drowned, but they did get her body and they show it. And of course Cormac is he's like heartbroken because he was going to try and marry her, not actually Bryce. That's all a farce in his mind. He's using it as a way to have an excuse to be around Bryce and to be in Crescent City, since he's technically from Avalon. Anyway, so it's really sad, and he's really, really heartbroken. But they notice Sophie has these like letters, like she like cut numbers and like letters into her shoulder. So of course they take a picture of it, and now they're trying to figure out what those letters mean. Okay, now just some random little tidbits of plot that I want to share. We're wrapping up here. We're actually doing pretty good. Baxine at one point talks to Bryce and Hunt about wanting to join the team, but they're just not convinced, so they say no. We learn that the Viper Queen has a meal, which is like a big plot point, and that kind of felt a little like it was just like a weird thing. So the Viper Queen had a meal. Bryce set it all up. Bryce knew the Viper Queen would be attracted to him because he's a Thunderbird and would want him like to fight. So Bryce somehow got the Viper Queen to hunt a meal down, find him, and then keep him until she was ready. She had communicated with her parents to take a meal in via postcard. So then Bryce goes to the meat market. Like, the exchange for Emil's is a favor, so now she owes the Viper Queen a favor, and now Emil goes to live with her parents, and Hunt's the only one who knows. Hunt's upset. He's like, why the heck didn't you tell me you set this all up? I think eventually Tharion knows. Like, I think Hunt tells Tharion, like, no one tells anyone else where Emil has gone to, but the two things that that everyone finds out are he's safe. Stop looking for him. He's not around here. And number 2, he never actually had powers to begin with, and he's not a Thunderbird. And that was a lie Sophie made up to, one, make him look attractive to Ophion to try to rescue, because she was worried that they wouldn't even rescue him from the get-go anyway, which is also why she's like, hey, I have this intel. Bye, I'm going to go find my brother. And to kind of, just to make him valuable in that sense. But he is just a child. He's got no powers. And so that is interesting. We find out Hypoxia thinks that she's like being hunted by her witch brethren. I kind of talked about at the beginning of this video. So Ethan is sent to be her bodyguard. That's also where Ethan's like, I'll be your bodyguard since you're a necromancer, you can try to contact Connor. She tries to contact Connor, but instead she gets put up with the Underking, who puts her through like these like trials. So we still don't know if Connor's okay. The Hind never tells anyone what happened on the island, and like the whole team's kind of like sweating bullets. Like, when is she gonna bring it up? Because Bryce has been using her princess powers, the Autumn King changed her name to Bryce Denon instead of Bryce Quinlan. And she's officially engaged. Quote, she has no power now. At some point, Bryce is like losing her mind, so her and Hypoxia like have a chat. Ethan is attacked by demons because, again, Ethan's like guarding Hypoxia. Ethan is attacked by demons. Then Bryce and Hypoxia try to get out of it. Hypoxia like Bryce is like, put your healing powers into me, and because, again, that like whole like fuel them up kind of thing, she's able to teleport, and they're able to overcome the demons, and they are able to save Ethan because, again, Hypoxia's healing powers, and right then and there is able to heal him. But that is super. But this is like a Reaper demon hound that Bryce kills, which I think will come up eventually later. During all this time, the other guard, the dragon that Ethan and Flynn and Declan like released and saved, they asked the dragon to also help watch Hypoxia because they're like, the dragon's technically a slave, and they're like letting her live with them and saving and protecting her, so they're like asking her to do this favor. She runs off, so she's just gone, and she actually goes and runs to the Viper Queen and agrees to fight for the Viper Queen and then eventually buy her freedom. So the dragon just left him. That's awful. Then we get to the mating ball. This is like the big event for Celestina and Ephraim to announce their mating, and it's like a huge event. This Day and Rune, Agent Daybright and Rune have agreed to meet up at midnight there. Rune goes to meet up with Day at their spot and finds the Harpy waiting, and he's like, oh crap, this is a bad idea. We could get caught. As he's leaving, he passes the Hind at the ball before the Autumn King has the chance to talk to the Asteri, because the Asteri are there, and the Archangels are there, and I think the Asteri are there too. For a split second, essentially, Bryce beats her father to the punch and announces Hunt as her mate, and that Prince Cormac has generously accepted to absolve the engagement because she has a mate. And now like the archangels like are like acknowledging this, so now the Autumn King has no power in it because the archangels just said, okay, great, Hunt is your mate, Prince Hunt. So now Hunt is a prince, and the Autumn King is pissed that she did that to him. Okay. Also at this party, Bryce and Hunt, while trying to go make out, run into a broom cupboard, and they walk in on none other than Celestina and Hypoxia, like, getting it on. So we find out that they are lovers, and that is really sad that they can't be with each other, because remember, Hypoxia is engaged to Rune, and Celestia, they're literally at her event as, like, her mating ceremony for Ephraim. Apollyon then visits Bryce in her dreams at some point. He tells her that Adis loved Queen Thea, like her ancestor, and that the Fae and forces of hell united against the Asteri. So he's trying to he's like painting the picture that like hell was not the enemy. Like hell was with you and the Fae trying to get the Asteri out. He also makes a comment. He says that it's easier to communicate with Hunt, because she's like, you've talked to Hunt too. He's like, yeah, because he was bred to interact from those with hell. So it's interesting. Like, so Hunt, we don't know who his dad is. We don't know what happened, but he's like something kind of other. And so now we get this first glimpse that he was bred to be able to talk to hell. So I think that is really interesting. I do just want to point out there were other beasts bred in Throne of Glass for this kind of thing. So I have my own theories. We're going to stop it there. Okay. Okay, so we already talked about Hypoxia and Ethan trying to contact Connor, not going well. Everyone knows Emil's alive. Oh, right, this is a key point. So when Hypoxia was trying to talk to Connor and ends up with the Underking is, like, pissed, and the Underking tells Hypoxia to send Bryce a message, and the message is, go to the temple now. Meet me at the temple, Bryce. Otherwise, I will turn your entire pack of friends into Second Light. So Bryce is like, crap, I'm going to go because I don't want the pack of devils being turned into Second Light. They show up at the temple. They find out through the Underking and being there that the Asteri actually summoned the Reapers, which isn't good. And then again, like, they're all trying, like, the Underking's trying to kill him, and Bryce, someone, I think like she has Hunt charge her up, and so she teleports, she goes to like a gate and says like the temple's being attacked. So then now like the Triari show up to try to help. They don't know that Bryce and Hunt are in there, but the Triari show up because Pippa, the Underking, set it up so that way when Bryce would get there, Pippa would also get there. Remember, she's pissed because she's like, you guys blew up my stolen goods that I was going to use against the Asteri. So now there's like a fight in the temple going on. And so that's when Bryce went out and was like, hey, the rebellion's attacking the temple, and so now they have enforcements coming in. Baxian's one of those enforcements and helps get Bryce out of there, Bryce and Hunt out of there, and that's when we discover Bryce is like, why are you helping us? And he like shows part of his like peck, and it has like through love all is possible written in Danica's handwriting, and this is where we discover that Danica had a mate, and it was Baxian. They would meet up every couple of months. Bryce is like able to put it together. It's like, oh my gosh, yeah, she didn't have sex with anyone, and she didn't date anyone for like 2 years. And then that's when she realized, oh, it's because that was when she was with Baxian. So Baxian kind of became a rebel synthesizer through his love for Danica and through like the things that she was learning. So this is also where we get the answer to the numbers. Bryce asks him, like, do you know what these numbers mean? He's like, yeah, I gave Danica those numbers. How do you have those numbers? And those numbers are a place located in the Crystal Palace, in the like heads, like where the Asteri are. So now they're like, okay, we need to go figure out what the heck is behind this door, because they go into footage, they take a look, and they realize that a couple people who've gone in this door come out. It's like clearly something has happened. Like Sophie went there, she had like a look on her face like a ghost. So they're like, okay, this is the intel Sophie died to protect. We need to go see what's behind the door. So now this is where we start getting, now we're at the end. So now they're all getting ready to go. They're putting together plans to go break in. So Cormac and Therion are going to be a distraction to try to get the Asteri. They're going to like blow they know Pippa's going to be there doing something. They're going to go meet Pippa there and cause a huge big distraction, which they do in that huge like explosion in the Crystal City that they cause. Cormac literally explodes himself in a ball of fire to destroy a bunch of things. In the process, Pippa dies, but Therion does get out, and it does bring the Asteri's attention to that. Meanwhile, Rune, leading up to this, he told Day about it, and Day like was freaking out and panicking. Day also found out and knows that he's Rune. But he still doesn't. She was like, I saw you. She's like, I saw you there. I know you're Rune. And so they were like having this moment. She's like, I don't think you should do that. And then she like gets cut off, and she's like being pulled out of her subconscious. And she mentions like the dungeons. And so Rune thinks that she's in the dungeons there as well. So you've got Cormac and Therion causing a distraction. You've got Rune there to back up Hunt and Bryce, but also to try and get Day out of the dungeons because he thinks that she's there. And then you have Hunt and Bryce there, who are going to go in and get Bryce in. So again, Bryce powers her up. She teleports in. You've got Declan on tech, like unlocking things for her and moving cameras around. So she makes it to the door. She makes it to the dang door that Sophie went to, the numbers that Danica had. And this is where she goes. She goes to the door. It's like stairs leading down. She walks down it, and it's all these tubes leading up. And she realizes first light, like what people create when they make the drop, is powering the Asteri, and it'll say like Rigilus, I cannot pronounce them, but on each tube there's a different Asteri's name, and then it says like power level 76%, power level 52%, and first light is what literally, so the Asteri are literally eating people's first light essentially. And so if you can stop the first light system and stop them from feed, like they will die. Like that's how they're getting their power. So it's like this huge revelation. She's supposed to leave because remember, she gets powered up, but the power eventually goes away. So she only has so much time before she can teleport out of there before she's stuck because she's lost the charge essentially. She's walking through this hallway, keeps going through. There's got to be more. There's a room called Dusk, which again will be in my theory video. She walks in the room called Dusk, and she finds all this crap about all these other worlds and realms that the Asteri have attempted to conquer, and like all these notes like, oh, wasn't nutritious enough, or then there's like the story about what happened with Hell because they try to like overtake Hell, and then it's the story about how they got to Midgard, and like she's just so sick, and then she finds out that there's all that Midgard was a good planet, and they had rifts. The Asteri created rifts to bring other species in to then be able to feed off of those species. And so now we learn that the Asteri brought in all, like, the Fae and the shifters. And one of the things that Danica had found out, that like now Bryce is finding out, is, and it has come with being a bloodhound, is that a lot of these, it's like there was really only like two different types of beings brought in. Like there's not like a bunch of like shifters and different, like it's not the mer people and this and this and this. There's actually one, and they bred them different. They made them like breed, I don't know how they did that, but breed it to make it look different. But actually, like the Fae and the shifters are the same type of being. They just made them seem separate, and like Danica could smell that. Like Danica could smell that they're all from the same thing. So some Fae are from some worlds, some Fae and some shifters are from some worlds, and other Fae and other shifters are from other worlds. But it's like all disgusting and awful. Um, they lured the creatures there. They tried to conquer Hell. Hell chased them away. And then like Bryce is learning more, and then Regilus shows up. At the same time, Rune is like going down into the dungeons to try to save Day. He gets captured. He's put in a cell. And then Regilus and Bryce are having this conversation. She basically learns. Regilus explains the whole thing, that, once the horn broke and like the rifts closed, the Asteri can't leave Midgard, and so he actually was the cat. So while Adis can be the cat, he pretended to be Adis as the cat, and has been the one trying to force Bryce along to her powers. And he set a lot of the main plot points in this book up to bring Bryce to this point, because he needs Bryce to be powerful and to learn how to do her powers to be able to start, open other portals to other realms. That way the Asteri can feed off of more people. So essentially we find out that the Asteri did a lot of things in this book to bring Bryce to this point, because they want Bryce to use the horns. That way they can leave and travel again and conquer new worlds and eat new worlds. And yeah, so all the creatures were originally, most creatures were originally Fae, and Danica found this out through her nose. The Asteri told Micah to get rid of the Asteri told Micah to get rid of Danica. So everything set up with Philip Briggs and the synth, all of that kind of came from the Asteri. Like the Asteri had their hand in that. Bryce leaves to go find, teleports back to Hunt, only to find he's in handcuffs. She then is handcuffs. They're put in the prison. The Harpies, they find Rune's in the prison. The Harpy comes to torture Rune, and who shows up? The Hind. And the Hind slaughters the Harpy for trying to touch Rune. And that's when Rune realizes that Day is the Hind. And he's like, oh crap, I forgot to mention at some point earlier on, Rune has sex with Day in their minds. And so he realizes when the Hind shows up that his scent is on her, which is so weird. But whatever. So now the Rune has to deal with that. But then Pollux comes in, and the Hind, Lydia can't keep, she's not going to be able to beat him. So she still has to go back to being the evil person, but at least she did kill the Harpy and saved Rune a little bit. So now Rune, Hunt, and Bryce are brought up. The Hind, Lydia, did not lock Bryce's shackles, and she gave Bryce a key, essentially. So Bryce's shackles are unlocked. And then they go up to meet Regilus, and he's finishing up, kind of giving his whole thing, and Bryce is trying to tell Rune and Hunt what happened, and how the Asteri are really bad. And then Bryce makes a deal. She's like, if you promise not to hurt Rune or Hunt and to leave them alone, I will open the portal for you and you can have me. To which point he agrees. And so he's like, say your goodbyes. She goes to say her goodbyes, and Rune and her are mind speaking. They've all kind of been coming up with a plan, and Bryce is really freaking out because the plan is for Bryce to run, because they don't want him to have the horn. Bryce is able to, while she's saying goodbye, unlock their handcuffs. And then as soon as the handcuffs are off, Rune says all hail the queen, and that was the signal to Hunt, and Hunt lights up Regilus, and gives Bryce a chance to leave. Bryce runs, tries to get out of there. Regilus is following. she's trying, and then Regilus is following. Hunt is able from far away as Bryce is running to power her up, and through those powers, she like kind of teleports. She gets to a gate and she opens it, and she goes to another realm. And she like the whole goal is like get to hell, go to hell, rally the princes, and she closes the gate before Regilus can follow. Regilus is pissed, and so Rune is now going back to the dungeons to be tortured. He brings Hunt out to the gate where Bryce fell, and he puts a new tattoo on Hunt. And the last thing that we find out is like, and Hunt forgot, or and Hunt thought nothing. Not that Hunt forgot, Hunt thought nothing. Oh my gosh, if this is an amnesia trope next book, I'm gonna lose my mind because I hate that trope. But anyway, Hunt thought nothing and now has the like tattoo on his head again. Bryce falls. She like lands in this misty place, and someone puts a dagger at her neck, like she thinks she's in hell. And then like she teleports, flies, whatever, to this house. The mist clears. She's like, there's grass in hell. She's put in like a comfy chair. And then all these people come in. They're clearly not speaking. They're not understanding her. She's like, Adis, I need the Prince of Hell. And then a woman comes in, and like Bryce is like really taken aback because this woman looks just like Fury. And then Bryce attempts to use the old language of the Fae, to which this woman understands and responds. And she's like, that language hasn't been spoken in like 15,000 years. And so then Bryce is speaking like, this is, I need to find Adis. Please tell Adis I'm here. And they're like, this isn't hell. We don't know what hell is. And then another character walks in, and Bryce is like shocked because it looks almost exactly like Rune with the hair and the eyes. And then they're all stunned because Bryce had the Star Sword at this point in time too. And they call it Gwydion. They say like Gwydion, and then the knife that was at her throat, they throw on it, and they're like, the swords are like the dagger and the sword are like lighting up. And then in the old language, the male says like, hello, my name's Rhysand. And so now we find out that she's not in hell. She is in Prythian in the world of Akatar, with like the whole crew there. And it's interesting because Gwydion is the name of the lost sword. That used to be a huge, big deal in Prythian, but no one's seen in years. And they refer to the Star Sword as Gwythian. It's also interesting because the Star Sword had a twin dagger that no one could find. And so now Truth Teller, Asriel's Truth Teller dagger is there, and they're talking. So clearly we are going to get a lot of, we are in the multiverse now, which is so exciting, but that's where we end up, which is so, so sad. So Hunt and Rune are in the dungeons. Declan and Flynn know what's going on because they were like on the camera. So they're the ones who are going to be able to report back. This just happened. Ethan is also on the ground in the epilogue. In the epilogue, he goes back to the Mystic and he steals the wolf. And they're like, he's not sure if he's going to steal her. And then Declan and Flynn are like, you need to get back here right now. And so he's like, F it, I'm going to steal her. And he gets her to wake up. And that's kind of like where the book ends. One thing I want to point out that I didn't mention any part at all, at some point, Ethan did go back to see the Prime, and Sabine was there too, and was like, look, there's a wolf, we need to save her. Sabine freaked out because she's like, you were expelled, you're no longer a part of the wolves. He's like, please, you gotta help her. I think she's an alpha. And then, like, the Prime isn't saying anything. Sabine leaves. Ethan gets up to leave, and then the Prime kind of stops him and is like, there was another alpha who went missing in the Fendir line. So essentially, he thinks that this wolf in the tank is the other alpha that could actually legitimately challenge Sabine to the right to rule. So that is also going to come up, I'm sure, in the next book. So that is where we are. That is everything. Obviously, there's a lot to unpack there. I apologize. I did as best as I could. But I think that really does sum it all up. And I know I hit all like the main key points, especially for like things that could help with kind of refreshing going into House of Flame and Shadow. But I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to follow me on Instagram, Morgan at Morgan in Bookland. Comment below. Tell me the things I missed. Tell me the things that you forgot and are grateful that I so eloquently mispronounced but was able to speak about. But anyway, yes, thank you for watching. My next video will be my Maas universe theories and where I think she is going in the endgame of everything, who I think is who, the connections, as well as talking about theories that people have that I definitely say, like, no, I don't think that that's true, and this is why, as well as talking about things that I don't have a theory for, but I think are really interesting and worth noting because they're confusing and clearly something's going to happen there. So anyway, stay tuned for the next one.